Well, hello everyone and welcome. Are you hearing me clearly?
Yes, good
Yes,
afternoon.
we're
Yes,
hearing. Good
we're
afternoon.
hearing.
Hi, good afternoon. Are you hearing me clearly? Are you?
Yes.
All
Yes,
right,
miss.
wonderful. Wonderful. We're so happy to have you with us today.
Yes, hi everyone. Can you hear me this
And
time? Say it, please.
good. And here
Okay.
is my co-host, Miss Bill, my co-presenter. Hear me about co-host.
Well, we
Let
are
me pull her
hosting.
up. Uh-huh. All right, well, today we are planning on having a wonderful time. All right, so we're going to be talking about self care for educators. All right, and we are elated that this time we are good to go. All right, and we're looking forward to moving ahead. All right, now this is the fourth in a series of webinars that we have had, and this is out of our recognition of the challenges that educators are facing and parents are facing, in terms of navigating this particularly trying time. All right, and so the chat room will be open as we go through the course of this presentation. So feel free to add your comments, but certainly we have designated specific periods for when we will give attention to the chat or engage with the chat room. But feel free to raise your hand, indicate, join, give comments as we go along. Now, close to the end of this meeting, we will invite those who are desirous to receive a certificate of participation to so indicate. So you will give us your full name at that point, because I know some of us are carrying pseudonyms at this point in time. So you'll give us your full names, and we also want you to indicate to us as well, for our own evaluation purposes, how you heard about this workshop. All right. So anyhow, I am Georgia Johnson Grant, and I am a special educator at the Microcare Center. And along with me presenting today will be Miss Sasha Bell, and she's an associate psychologist. And we'll be talking a little bit about self-care for educators, as we mentioned. So questions that you may have, throw them out at us, give us your feedback, and we are looking forward to a wonderful time. So I'm going to turn the time over now to Miss Bell, and I'm trying to find her screen name. So Sasha, just shout that out to me.
Here. Again. I'm here. Found me?
I am trying to find you. What is your name in the
It's
waiting in this?
Jane. Oh, wait. 1 second.
Yeah, let's find you.
1 second. Hold on. About to find me. All right. I've been named. My name is my name.
Your name is your name.
Yes.
All right. Sasha Bell. All right, here we go. So I'm going to turn the time over now to Miss Bell, and we're going to hit the ground running.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very happy to be here at this time to run through self-care tactics. You know, in doing this workshop, we decided to do it because we know that COVID-19 has been very stressful for everyone, but teachers have experienced a lot of change. Teachers and educators have experienced a lot of change in COVID-19, just in terms of delivering instruction and so on. And we thought about it and we said we'd like to provide some kind of workshop that would benefit you and help to manage the stress that comes along with COVID-19 and being a teacher at this strange time. All right, so I'm just going to start the presentation. Okay, is everyone seeing the screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, great. Just wants to make sure so we can start smoothly. All right, so we're discussing self-care for educators navigating COVID-19 challenges. In this session, we will define stress and stressors, identify signs of being stressed, identify and discuss some stressors in the current COVID-19 climate, and provide strategies and additional resources that we might use to manage and prevent stress, or future stress, I should say. All right, so what are stressors? Stressors are experiences or situations that we perceive to be threats. And they become more challenging to deal with when we don't feel that we have the resources to be able to deal with it ourselves. Now, the stress is how our bodies actually respond to these perceived threats or demands. So what happens when a stressful situation, our body's defense goes into high gear, whether it's known as a fight or flight reaction, which many have probably heard of from time to time, or the stress response. And it's just another way of our bodies protecting us. So, for example, so what we have here, when there's a threat, our nervous system releases stress hormones, which are adrenaline and cortisol, which then signals that there's danger, and then we give our stress response. So during the stress response, you may experience things like muscles tightening, increased heart rate, or heightened senses. So one thing I want to do quickly before we continue, the whole thing about muscles tightening. We tend to hold a lot of our stress in our shoulders. So right now, my shoulders are relaxed, or I'm making them relax. And I want to show you what tight shoulders might look like. And please join me in doing this. Tighten up your shoulders. And you see that I kind of get hunched and lose them. It's kind of your body's way of telling you, okay, you're stressed out right now. And this is how you're responding accordingly. But there is a purpose to our bodies doing this because it is protective. So the goal is to increase focus and stamina and reaction time to prepare you to either fight or flee the situation. So if you have a deadline, for example, you might find that you are more focused or you have increased stamina. Or you might find that you just want to slam the laptop down and walk away. All right, so what happens when, that's a one-off stressful situation. But what happens when you repeatedly face challenges? Which I find out with COVID-19, that is definitely something that is happening to you as educators, new challenges as long as this virus keeps going on. So when you repeatedly face challenges, your body's emergency system will be constantly activated, and then you exist in a heightened state of stress. The more your emergency system is activated, the easier it becomes to trigger, making it harder for your body to return to normal. So basically, the more you're stressed and the more things affect you, you'll find that smaller things that never used to affect you before are affecting you more now. And then your body is also finding it harder to calm down. So for example, one stressful thing happens, your body responds, your body goes back to normal, then something else happens, stress number 2. And in the middle of it calming down, stress number 3 happens. So you still haven't calmed down yet, but we're going through it again, then stress number 4 happens. So you can see that it keeps piling up. And then what happens is that we have stress hormones that build up in the blood, and over time may contribute to serious health issues like hypertension or diabetes. So it is therefore important to be able to identify signs of stress as early as possible so we can do something about it. And it's also important to know that each person responds to stress differently. What stresses me out might not stress you out. And the same situation can evoke a completely different stressful response. But now I want to hear from you. So let's talk. How do you know when you're stressed? I'd like someone to volunteer and answer, and you can also put some responses in the chat as well. So give me one of your signs of being stressed. Anybody?
Hi. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Your inability to focus.
Yes. Which is kind of the opposite of when you are given the ability to focus. So you know that means you've been under too much stress by then. Anybody else?
I'm seeing in the chat, Miss Bell, where Andrea said headache.
Yep.
Zandra says can't sleep through the night. Let me see, there are a couple others. Oh, Andrea also said eating a lot. Constant headaches, that's coming up again. From Kay Campbell, my pressure elevates, says Stacey and Reed. Wonderful comments, wonderful comments. Keep them coming. Joshua says when I cannot concentrate or sleep.
Right.
Agitated, coming from Allison.
Do you find that you've been increasingly stressed since COVID-19 started?
No.
Anyone?
No.
All right, so we got
Are you hearing Miss Bell?
Okay. Yes, I heard. All right.
Okay.
So you mentioned some of these already, but we have physical and emotional symptoms as well as some others that we'll get into. So someone mentioned headaches. There's also stomach aches, skin conditions like eczema and acne. You also find that you might be more prone to getting colds or catching infections and because of a weaker immune system. And right now, more than ever, we need to be taking care of our immune systems because of this virus and the possible effects that it might have on us. Also, you might feel more tired all the time and experience changes in weight. Now, emotional signs, you might find that you are short-tempered, snappy, easily frustrated and agitated. You might cry more, have more feelings of sadness and anger, and you might also begin to lack confidence in yourself. So, and also as well as a loss of interest in engaging activities. So for lacking confidence, you know, you might have approached something with, okay, this might be challenging, but I can do this. But if you are stressed out, it makes the situation bigger than it is, and it's harder for you to realize that you can actually still do it despite being in a cloud of stress. So other signs, someone mentioned eating more before, sorry, and someone also mentioned not sleeping through the night. So you might find that you wake up more often, you can't sleep, or you sleep a lot more than you used to. You might worry more, avoid people. Well, to be fair, avoiding people right now is really not such a bad thing with the COVID situation. There's also racing thoughts, inability to concentrate, which I know I heard mentioned, and being pessimistic or only seeing the negative side. So you can see that it affects how you think about things and how you view things, which when you're stressed out, you're just not able to function as well as you normally could have. You might find that you're only stuck in a certain bubble and you can only see the negative side, or you can't see the positive side out of something. So moving on to the next section. Mrs. Grant? Can't hear you.
Good to go now. Okay, wonderful. So just giving attention to what Miss Bell said earlier. You know, while the stressors may be different, the recipe for stress is universal, and the ingredients are universal as well. As was indicated by the Center for Studies and human stress. Now, we're going to move into an activity. Let's go to the next slide, Ms. Bell. Good. Now, using the acronym NUTS, I want you to tell me what you think these ingredients are. What are these ingredients that present themselves or that contribute to stress or stressors? So you can add your responses in the chat. I'm monitoring the stress room, so I'm looking at that. Or you can certainly let me hear your voice and see your faces. That is so, it's so wonderful to be able to hear your voices and to see your faces. So what do you think these ingredients are? Nuts.
Good afternoon. Are you hearing me? Good afternoon.
Yes.
Hi, good afternoon.
Um,
I am hearing you
okay, so these ingredients would contribute to the stress.
very clearly.
So the N is probably negativity. I'm not sure.
It's a good guess. Anyone else?
I'd love to take that one. Can I go?
Yes, go ahead.
Negative, unpleasant thoughts. I guess that's about it.
Okay, does anyone else have anything to add? These are good guesses, but much better than mine when Mrs. Grant tried this activity with me first. So it's good.
I get it.
Is the T?
I think I get it.
All right, go ahead.
Not understanding the solution.
Yeah, this was a real brain teaser.
Could the T be for threat you feel? Because when you're stressed, there's some sort of threat to your balance.
I believe you might be correct. Might.
Right.
All right. So we're going to move to the next one to show you what the answers are. We're just Mrs. Grant.
Yes, I am back.
Oh,
I am back.
Okay, okay.
All right, and I'm funny little situation, but wonderful. All right,
Good
so Belle, did you get to look at the chat to see what those comments were? So I saw Yolanda sharing with us earlier.
Oh, let me look.
All right, let me see what we have happening in our chats. Novelty. Oh my goodness. So Stacey Ann Reed says novelty. Anything else, Stacey Ann? What do you think the T and the U and the S stands for?
I see tension.
So I see treat. Okay, so novelty, treat. Okay. Threat. Threat. Okay, great. I'm seeing novelty. Boy, that's a word that is featuring very often. Unpredictability. You know, do you know what I think some of my educators are doing here today? They're doing exactly what our students are going to do, which is to Google some of these answers as we go along. But let's move along, Ms. Bell. Thank
But okay.
you.
Oh, sorry.
Wonderful. Wonderful, though. Thank you. All right. So let's go to the next slide. All right. Wonderful. So yes, for all of those who said novelty, Ms. Bell, certainly. Unpredictability, definitely. Threat to ego, definitely. All right. So these are certainly the ingredients that we say contribute to stressful moments in our lives. Thinking about the issue of navigating the COVID climate at this point in time, novelty. A big one has to do with our use of new learning management systems. You know, most educators are used to function in a face-to-face setting. But then this place where we have to learn how to navigate technology and to learn to navigate that technological space and engage. So that the idea of novelty certainly is and can be a stressor for so many of us. Unpredictability, definitely that is one. It may be a situation that at your school, you know, you may have a principal or an administrator who loves to try new things, and so I'm trying not to say this is the reality of what happens sometimes, you know, like this minute we're saying, you know, all right, we're going to go about it this way, but then we change and we switch to something else. So that measure of unpredictability, not knowing if what we are learning and doing will remain constant over time, that can be a source of stress for so many, a source of stress for so many of us. Back to ego, again, looking back at the learning management system as well. Certainly there is the challenge for us as educators, because as we often call our students digital natives, they are digital natives in the realest sense of it, and I'm sure you can agree with that, right? And so when we are brought to that place now where we're required to engage them in that space, oh my goodness, we are afraid that we're going to make mistakes, and we're so afraid that they're going to laugh at us. You know, this threat to our level of competence, and this feeling that we're going to lose control of the situation can certainly be a stressor to us. Sense of control, another example that we can look at in this COVID climate of losing our sense of control. It could be that, you know, we're teaching a wonderful lesson, we're engaging. Yolanda is now going to speak, or Yolanda is sharing a wonderful point about what you think the ingredients are. And then all of a sudden, oh my goodness, the power goes, or something happens and you get cut off right in the middle of it. Eh? And then the whole idea of losing control over the situation, because in reality, you have there's so little that you can do in that moment. So these are potential stressors that you and I will have to deal with, and I'm sure that some of you would have already had opportunities to engage with as you have practiced using these new learning management systems over the past couple of months. All right, Ms. Bell, let's go to the next slide. Now, something that is important is that, and it's a principle when you look at behavior management, right? Because certainly managing student behavior in a face-to-face climate in and of itself can be a real challenge for most educators. So now here we are in a space where we have to interact with students in this online space. And just like some of you have up your little avatars, or I'm looking at a black screen, for all I know, you could be dancing or doing boogie woogie behind the black screen. I have no idea. All right? You could be cooking, you could be sewing, you could be doing all of these things. And certainly, while it is okay to be doing all of those things at a point in time, at this point in time, right? You or I would not want our students to be doing boogie woogie and all of those things while we're instructing and while we would expect them to be engaged in learning. All right? And so that can certainly be a potential stressor for teachers. And so we want to talk about these things a little bit. What are some of the things, before I move on though, I want you to tell me quickly, what are some of the things that you have implemented, or some of the strategies that you have implemented over the past several months that has helped you to be ahead of the possible behavioral challenges that could and would exist while working with students online? All right, I'm listening. Silence is always golden, and it means that you're thinking. So I love when my students are thinking. It's wonderful. So tell me, what are some strategies that you have implemented or that you think can or will work in order to help us as teachers to manage or to be ahead of the game in managing student behavior in the online classroom?
May I take it?
Sure.
Certainly, Carmen. Go right ahead.
One of the things we were using at our school was the SWEBIS plan, the school-wide positive behavior in school plan. And so one of the things that would come under that would be the core values. So I intend that at the beginning of each class, whether I'm there or not, to remind teachers to have the students reflect on the core values, or even just to say them, whether it's respect, dignity, love, whatever, so that they will be reminded that they're in that space where these things should be displayed.
Thank you very much, Carmen. All right, so let me comment a little bit on some of what I'm seeing, what is being posted in the chat. So I'm seeing Alison mention that she engaged students in Think, Talk, Share. Alison, I'm going to let you tell us a little bit about that soon. All right, I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but this is also a space that we're engaging, but we're learning from each other, right? A concern that Cover Plus, oh my goodness, Covers Plus mentioned, or one of our participants, is that of students being inappropriately dressed for class. But some of the strategies that were utilized are creating a set of online classroom rules. I'm seeing that from several participants. And then earlier, Carmen mentioned that, and Alice is adding to that now, incorporating values and attitudes in the sessions. Right, I'm seeing that as well. That's what saying establishing rules and being consistent in maintaining them. Wonderful. All right, now let us move ahead and let's look at some of what we have come up with. Let's see how similar they are to what you have and how different they may be. All right, now certainly from the get-go, just like what everybody is saying, and teachers, we know that a part of mitigating the challenges or preventing the challenges that can present with behavior management issues that may arise, whether in a face-to-face class or in an online classroom setting, is to establish clear rules and guidelines for student behavior at the onset. So that is early. So we're looking at the very first class, or for some of us who would have been having practice sessions with our students even before class. That would be wonderful, like a day or a week before, when we're having like a class meeting. Absolutely important that students understand the expectations that are being set. Make sure that tasks are appropriate and that they're manageable. So even during the online space, and I'm touching on this as well, because this was an area of complaint for many parents that I'm familiar with, and for some students. All right, so we have to make sure that our tasks are appropriate, make sure that they're manageable and they're adequate to suit the amount of time that we have, and adequate to provide a level of challenge or support that students will need. Provide breaks, so important for you as the educator and important for the students. A little young man I'm aware of who is in grade 4, he had a very hard time functioning in the online environment last term, because he said, oh my goodness, it is like I cannot get a break. He said it's just, and his school, certainly they were different, they were subject teachers, right? So he had the English teacher was scheduled for this time, and then you had a math teacher, and so they would just come one behind the other like clockwork. And it was a source of great challenge for him and many of the students in his class. And so the teacher had challenges managing those behaviors, because students would be laying on the desk, some gone for bathroom break. They were not afforded the break, and so they did what you and I probably would do. They took their break. They initiated the break, right? So we want to mitigate against that. We want to prevent it and manage ahead of time by ensuring that we provide breaks. Really important. Set aside time as well for students to socialize while online. That's important. You know, use the breakout room features of Zoom if you're using that learning management platform, or on Google Suites is what many of us are using. Use those options that are there to allow students to have time to socialize while online. Whatever it is that we want to say, all right, you can come in, let's start 10 minutes before class time. We'll start our session at 9 o'clock, word speaking, and between 9:45 and 10 o'clock and 9:59, I will allow you guys to have fun and to interact and to engage. Really important. We want to make sure that we take the time to strengthen teacher and student relationships even during those times, because you and I can agree that the interpersonal relationship between teachers and students. Absolutely important. And research backs this up as well, right? And that when students have a sense of teacher care, when they know that you care about them and you relate to them, then it is less likely that they will do anything to displease you. And many of you can attest to that, right? Teaching those students who everybody says, boy, is so difficult to manage, but you're in your class and you're so angelic, going about and doing everything that Miss says, because he has that relationship with teacher, because he knows that Miss respects him and cares about him, not just about his ability to learn math or language or physics, but Miss also cares about him as a person. All right, so we have to keep that going. Personal phone calls to students, that is something that we can consider as a management strategy now, and also as a prevention strategy to some extent. If we see misbehavior occurring, and this is particularly important and valuable when we're looking at the high school population as well, because no one wants to be called out in front of their peers, as I'm sure you can agree with me, right? And so in those moments, if you see Johnny disengaged, looking like he's chatting on his phone or WhatsApping rather, when he should be engaging, just shoot him a message or send him a phone call and get him back on track. All right, Ms. Bell, can we go to the next slide?
Sure.
Wonderful. All right, so let's look at this. So this is a welcome note that a grade 4 teacher created, all right? And she used this, or she attached it as a part to her learning management system this was one of her first posts. So I want to tell you now, put yourself in the position of students in this grade 4 class, all right? And I want you to tell me first, how does this make you feel? What expectations do you feel are communicated? How will you want to act or interact going forward as a consequence of having this note at the very beginning of your class? Silence is golden. Speak to me. All right, Carmen Joseph says, I would do everything to ensure a fantastic year. Yes, you may.
Okay, looking at it, I would want to, I would feel welcomed, first of all, to this class. And I would also be looking forward to the learning environment with which I would have found myself in. I think it's a very nice note to the students, and I'm wondering if I could actually keep it. But I would feel welcomed, and I would look forward to learning.
What about the expectations? Do you think those expectations are clear? Will that help me to know how to manage myself?
Well, responsibility of the learner, participating in class, completing assignments. I think for the grade 4 level, it is enough, although she will the teacher will have to do some reinforcing during the time. But yes, for the welcoming, it is not too overwhelming to appreciate. Yes.
All right. Thank you. So these are things that we're inviting you to some strategies that you can use, all right, going forward in preparation for next week. I'm looking at the chats. Wonderful. I'm seeing all of those. Wonderful. Miss Bell, can we go to the next slide now, please? All right, this is positive, says Andrea. I would be motivated and excited to learn. It challenges the students who want to do well. I'm going to share with my teachers. Certainly, do feel free to share with your teachers. All right, so then now, stress prevention and management strategies now, looking at it again, also in the context of challenges that may present from misbehavior. or inappropriate behaviors in our classroom. So we have to engage our parents as well because they're an important part of this process, you know. So certainly, in the same vein of ensuring that our students are aware of what we expect of them, we want to ensure that our parents are also aware of the expectations that we have of them as parents and the expectations that we have of their children as students. Can consider setting up a parent WhatsApp group as an addition to this, but certainly you and I know that this can also be a great source of stress. All right, setting up a parents WhatsApp group, because sometimes we may have parents texting us or feeling it's okay to send messages or to call us at odd hours of the night. And so for that, I invite you to establish rules that governs that as well. So for example, you can say, okay, Mrs. Romy, I will check my messages between the hours of, let's say, 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock, and I will check it once again at 8 p.m. All right? So outside of that time, and you need to stick to it, hold yourself to these rules. All right? So you check within those time frames and do not feel guilty if you do not check or respond outside of those hours, because there is life after COVID, and this is what we want educators to understand. And the aim of this is to help us to manage ourselves so that we will be around to manage life after COVID, right? And so certainly as Miss Bell moves on to the next slide, we can look at sending personalized calls to parents when they have challenges, and certainly share resources like timetables, tasks to be completed daily with parents. That would be a great benefit to you, all right, as an educator, in terms of having additional support to manage or to prevent inappropriate behaviors in the online space. Challenges with technology, practice, practice, practice. That's as much as that's the overarching thing. Challenges with technology and the level of stress that will come from the novelty of this will come as we practice, practice, practice. So seek help and mentorship from colleagues, YouTube, family members, friends, even your very students. You can engage in this process. And do not feel less than yourself for getting the help when you need it. All right? Stick to one platform, we will say, and give time to mastering it. So don't be all over the place. So right now, educators are primarily working with Google Suites. Just do your best to learn the ins and outs of that. Engage with colleagues, find best practices for using, and create a professional learning community around that, because we're all in this together. All right? Ms. Bell, to the next slide, please. And then certainly we're looking at the difficulties that can come with balancing work and personal responsibilities. All right? This is such a challenging time for so many of us, because we are working from home, and home is work and work is home. I'm not sure if you guys have had challenges dealing with that, or if you've looked at it in that context, but that is really what it has all boiled down to. Home is work and work is home. All right? And notwithstanding this being the case, for those with family or other caregiving responsibilities, for those who are doing school, may have a little small business on the side, whatever it is, it's a matter now of making sure that we're able to balance out our time, that we're able to achieve all right? That is important to us, because that is certainly a source of misery for so many of us when we're not able to move towards those goals that we have set for ourselves. So revisit priorities. Do an audit of how you spend your time, all right? So make a list of the top priorities that you have at home and at work, and determine what you're going to start doing, what you're going to continue doing, what you're going to do differently, or what you just need to stop doing altogether, all right? Seek help with caregiving responsibilities as needful, so that you'll be able to focus on work when it's work time, and be able to focus on those things that are necessary, all right? And not be overly burnt out. All right, maintain a relationship with your child's or your children's teacher. And just speaking from a professional perspective as well, and from the perspective of a parent, a challenge for me during this time, and even during last term, was managing work and work responsibilities and children responsibilities at the same time. Because as much as I was not or am not my children's primary teacher in terms of the learning of academic content, I had to kind of take the bull by the horns in as it related to that, all right, because of the challenges that existed at the time. And so the whole idea of, you know, feeling a little guilty sometimes that, oh my goodness, you know, I have these deadlines to meet from a work standpoint, but at the same time, I can't. I have to make sure that my children don't fall behind, you know, just trying to manage that space. And so a practical solution that I came up with that was really helpful was that, like, okay, so I have an 8-year-old and I have a 5-year-old who thinks that he's 6, and I have a 2-year-old who thinks that she's 16 years old. So what I ordinarily do is that based on what is happening at a particular time, you know, I would use the plan that I have for their individual instruction, and I would ask the 8-year-old to offer some tutoring to the 5-year-old. So she would work with him with his sight words and those basic things, right? While I would work. And then at another point in time, I would ask that 5-year-old to work with the little one to teach her colors and to identify shapes. So it was really a way of kind of shifting around those responsibilities somewhat so that I was able to manage work and manage the responsibility of having them receive instruction and remain instructed, right? So I share this just to say that the challenges are real, and there's life after COVID, but the challenges are real, and we want to find the best way we can to navigate all of this, right? So let's move ahead. All right, so let's look. Thank you, Althea. Thank you very much. All right, you definitely will. All right, so then we're looking at now establishing boundaries, really important, setting aside time at home during which you do not check or respond to work-related emails or calls, and leave work at work. So my colleague and I were laughing today about this because we're saying, how do you leave work at work when work is at home, right? And so certainly, if it is that we use a little area, so let's say I use this desk that I'm on now, and this is my workspace. As soon as, somebody mentioned that they're required to work from 7:30 until 2:30. So as soon as it is 2:30, or let me say 3 o'clock, I would get up from this desk and I will glance on it certainly, but I will not come back and sit here or be deliberate in sitting here to do work. Pack away the things. If you don't have if you have challenges in terms of ignoring the books or work materials that you have on your desk, get a box, one of those little chicken boxes or those boxes that can be covered, and pack away your work things and leave them in that box and cover it over and let it remain covered or hidden. All right, so that is kind of how I have been able to be at home where work is, but not actively engage in work, because it's not always easy to do that. All right, so pack away work and move along. Make time for you. Absolutely important. And we're suggesting all of these things. Ms. Bell, could you go to the next slide? Because as we said, there's life after COVID, and we want to be in good shape after. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but certainly I want you to, we will send you a link with this information. So you want to make sure that you take into consideration ergonomics or safety, right? Because many of us will be using, well, we will be using laptops and desktops and so on forth, okay, in order to engage with our students. So we want to make sure that our monitors are at the right distance from our eyes. Make sure that we're sitting in a comfortable chair, making sure that our back is upright. Look at the gentleman's hand, that's a 90-degree angle, as much as we can do that. And their feet flat on the ground, flat on the floor. For those of us who may be on the shorter side, get some books and put under your feet, right? Those things, as simple as they are, will help us to also be physically well. all right? So we don't develop problems, joint problems. Then we're looking at carpal tunnel syndrome, all of these different things. And as Ms. Bell mentioned earlier, and as we think about it, our bodies and our minds are not really separate. You know, if we are physically, if you're feeling pain, it affects us. You know, it can be a real source of stressor. If you're not well, it can be a source of stressor. And so when we're talking about this, the fact that you need to get up and walk around, rest your eyes, look away, look to the furthest corner of your room, look away from the screen from time to time, every 20 minutes. These things are important. All right, so make sure that you look into these things as best as possible. As I thought about even laptop safety, because many of us ergonomics looks primarily at people who are using like desktops, like what we see in that screen, right? Because ideally they would say that the monitor needs to be elevated and your keyboard should be a little lower. How do we really navigate that with a laptop? Well, what I simply do, because I primarily use a laptop, I put a couple books below or beneath this laptop, and then I have a separate keyboard. All right, so that gives me the comfort of being able to have the monitor at eye level and be able to type from a keyboard without having to come up here, right? Which can be very, very damaging, as we have learned, and as you will learn as you review this a little bit more. Miss Bell? All right, so general stress prevention tips. Learning to say no, know your limits and stick to them. Teachers, really, really important. Do not feel if someone asks you to do something and you cannot do it. One of the first questions that Miss Bell asked, or one of the questions that Miss Bell asked earlier was, how do you know that you're stressed? That simply means that we have some measure of power in determining how we are feeling when we're feeling it. And so we know our limits. We understand when we're getting to that place where we're going to almost tip over, right? So say no. Say no and feel comfortable saying no, because we are looking ahead, right? Avoid people stress you out. That's a simple one too. So if you know that being around Mrs. Grant sends up your pressure, gives you a headache, I just can't manage the negativity that comes out of Mrs. Grant's mouth from time to time. When you see Mrs. Grant coming from the east, I say take the west or take the north. All right? Kind of, or limit the amount of time that you spend with Mrs. Grant. All right? It's as simple as that. These are things that we have control over. All right? Avoid topics that upset you easily. So if it's religion or politics for you, just cross it off your discussion list. If you see someone engaging in a conversation, as much as you have the urging to engage, just step away. All right? These are things that you and I can do and do easily. Ms. Bell, the next slide, please. Scale down on your to-do list as well. And this is connected to prioritizing as well. All right? Just eliminating what is not necessary and focusing on those things that are of utmost importance. Take control of your environment. If the news makes you anxious, just turn the TV off. If you are stressed out by the constant notifications coming in, just turn off your notifications, mute your chat. Just take some time for yourself. So, but these are things that educators can do in order to ensure that there is a measure of self-care. Ms. Bell? All right, and some additional tips: engaging in deep breathing, stretching, meditating, exercising, taking short walks, engaging in fun activities, and the list could go on and on. All right? But just taking time for self. Ms. Bell, next slide, please. All right, as we are approaching slowly but surely, or winding up scene, I want you to take a look at this cartoon. Can you see that cartoon very well? Now I want you to look at the final picture in this comic. And I want you to tell me, based on what we have all been discussing thus far, what are some things that you can do and that I can apply that will ensure that we don't end up there? So Stacy said, say no. What else can we do? Avoid negative, accentuate the positive. I see that coming from Carmen. Tanya says react differently. Andrea says be honest with your feelings. Stacey says delegate tasks. All of these very important. Very important. Stay in your lane, do your work only. Stay in your lane, Allison. All right, do your work only. Carmen says spiritual development. Zandra is saying, very important, Carmen, that is true. Zandra says, find that person you can break down to, as in share your feelings and your concerns, certainly. Certainly. We're not superheroes, and we definitely need those opportunities to release stress when it comes. Go to the spa, definitely, Stacey, and you know, Miss Bella and I wish that we had some, which we spoke about it, you know, and we wish that we had some spa tickets to give to all of you guys, all of owners that joined us today, but yes, definitely going to the spa, certainly. Having a cutoff time for work and home time, definitely, Christine, wonderful. These are things that we all spoke about. Don't allow others, says Allison, to use you to get their tasks done. Yes, we have to manage ourselves in terms of that too. Joshua says get balanced, physically, mentally, spiritually, definitely, Joshua. Oral says be honest when responding to those how are you questions. So important, be honest in responding to those how are you questions. Take care of your mental health, said Alicia. Darcy says know your limits. All right, so we have all of these things. Wonderful, wonderful. Appropriate nutrition. You guys are amazing.
That's a good one.
You guys are amazing. And exercise. Praying more. Excellent, excellent. Ms. Bell, can we go to the next? Try doing something that you enjoy. Just your excellent. And there's a wonderful video that we wanted to share with you, but we're not going to be able to share it today. But it will be included in the handout that we're going to send to you. But what I want us to take away as well, because guess what? Yes, reading a motivational book, good. So I hope everybody's paying attention to the chats now. You guys are amazing, wonderful, wonderful. Let your well-being be your priority. Now, what do we do after we have done all of these things? All right, after we have put these plans in place, ensure that our students understand what we expect of them, ensure that our parents understand when we've practiced and done all of these things, but at the same time, try to prioritize, but we still fall short. What do we do? Now, there's a wonderful theory that looks at self-compassion, which is beautiful, and I think it is so applicable and important, because guess what? Sometimes, no matter how much we try to alleviate some stressors or to prevent things from becoming stresses to us, things happen, life happens, we fall short, things don't always go according to plans. But we need to be kind to ourselves. That's just a simple thing. Instead of mercilessly, so easily, we're kind to people, you know, we're so kind to people, but sometimes we're so unkind to ourselves. So instead of beating up on ourselves when we fall short, pretend that ourselves was somebody else and extend that measure of kindness to self as we would, and understanding. All right? It's important to link to this theory that we remember that we're human. So we're vulnerable and we're imperfect. All right? This is all a part of the human condition. And what happens to us is not happening to us alone. It's nothing that is unique to Georgette. It is nothing that is unique to Alison or unique to Tanya or unique to Joshua. People all the time. It's a part of the human experience. And so when we understand that as well, that we are imperfect, that we're going to make mistakes, then that will help us to de-stress us and help to focus our minds appropriately. And as somebody had mentioned earlier, be aware of your negative thoughts to them and reframe them. Remembering to be kind to self, to make self remember that failure sometimes is just a part of the human experience. And so we dust ourselves off, we celebrate like Carmen is saying, and we move right along. Miss Bell?
Okay, so we had this session on self-care, right? But we wanted to leave you with something that you could, take with you after this, because sometimes we need additional help in the form of talking to somebody who you're not familiar with, someone who's objective. So maybe talking to a counselor. So maybe looking at someone through the church or institutions like Family Life Ministries. I've also provided a private mental health link that will allow you to access psychologists and their contacts. Something I'd actually like all of us to do at some point. Well, I did mine before this, but we have a perceived stress scale. When I did it, it was moderate the first time. The second time it was low, so it shows that it does change. But I'd like everyone to do that just to have an idea of how you're feeling right now and what your stress level is. And I've also provided 2 links for stretches that are to reduce stress. So there's one of them has pictures and the other one who has videos for demonstrations, depending on whichever one you want to approach or how you like to learn that kind of thing. Those are references. So the session.
And if I may,
go on.
And if I may add, sorry to interrupt. So you don't have to worry about trying to write these links down real quickly. All right, we are going to be emailing these to you. All right, and we're going to add the one for that video that looks at self-compassion. All right, so you can sit down in your own time, in your me time, and reflect on these things. All right, and I would advise you that perceived stress scale. Feel free to use it over and over again as you navigate this process. All right, wonderful resources. And you guys were a great audience.
Yes, thank you so much for participating today. It was great to see all the responses in the chat and to hear some voices and see some faces as well. We don't get to do that very often anymore in terms of interacting with the teachers that we normally work with. So I hope you enjoyed the session and that you take in some others that we have. Mrs. Grant, do you remember the next one?
All right, now a couple that we have coming up, there'll be one that will be looking certainly on reading and literacy in the home for parents, and this is me paraphrasing now, certainly. And then there'll be another that will be looking at supporting the curriculum at home. All right, but if you will go on the Michael Instagram page, however, you will find the details, and you will be able to register accordingly. All right, I will invite you to register accordingly because you're teachers, but you're also parents too, right? And so, especially for those at the high school level, you may not be aware of how to teach literacy to your children at the early childhood level or at the primary school level. So definitely feel free to engage in those workshops that will be coming up. What we're going to ask you to do as well, for those who would love to have a certificate of presentation, thank you guys for the kind comments that are coming in. But for those who would love to have a certificate, receive a certificate of attendance, I'm going to ask you to type your name, comma, and what we want you to do as well, for our own evaluation purposes, we want you to help us to know how you heard about this workshop, right? So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, whatever it is. So for example, I would put Georgette Johnson Grant. So put your full name out. So I'm not seeing any pseudonym. So Georgette Johnson Grant, comma, and I would probably put Instagram or Facebook. All right. So make sure you type it in the chat so that we can have your information. All right. So I'm seeing Stacy and Reed. Excellent. So keep it coming just like that. Wonderful.
We love how everyone is participating so much.
Come send them on. Let that right. Wonderful. I'm seeing them. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm seeing Deborah Ford that she heard via apps coaches. Okay, so you're an apps coach, Deborah. So Deborah works with students who have special education needs. So certainly we know things like timing and scheduling will be important things as well for Deborah. Hi, Mrs. Dixon Malcolm. I'm seeing you there. All right, so again, thank you for coming. And we invite you, you can log off as soon as you're through because the session has ended, even though we feel like we could go on and on and on and on. But the session has ended, so as soon as you have indicated, you can certainly leave the chat room, and Ms. Bell and I will remain here for some time, collecting some information and reflecting personally. But absolutely, we're grateful to have had you. It was a wonderful session. Wish you all an excellent term. All right, a term that you will implement these stress prevention and management strategies in, so that you will be prepared to handle life, not just now, but post-COVID. All right, so
Stay
you have
safe
a
and healthy
wonderful
as well.
day.
Thank you. Same to you.
Daisy and, okay, so I'm seeing also Marie and Deborah and Sharon. Hi, Auntie Sharon, how are you? Feel free to leave the session or to leave the meeting as soon as you've entered your information. All right, I'm seeing Deborah Ford as well. Deborah, was it you who said you would not be able to make it today? But we're happy to see that you were able to
Yes,
fit
we
it
are.
in. Wonderful to see
We're going to
you.
make sure that you
How
got
you made it.
information, so it's good that you came through.
Yes, it was me.
Ah, wonderful. Happy that you got to come back. Wonderful.
I am happy too.
All right, thank you, Deborah. Were you able to, did you add your information? Well, your name is already there. But did you put your name in the chat again, Deborah? So just put your name again in the chat for me if you haven't done so. And
Okay.
just indicate how you heard about the workshop. All right,
Yes,
for our
I
own
did that.
planning purposes. All right, and then you can always, right, thank you, my darling. So you can leave whenever you are through, all right? And wonderful to see you again. And
Thank
Mr.
you. I
Crow.
had indicated already.
All right, perfect, beautiful.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Sasha, I removed the last participant. I think she was
Okay.
having some problems
Yeah.
logging out.
Maybe
All
I'll
right,
close it.
so now comes
Oh,
the
there.
mammoth task of
Not.
figuring out how to, or probably can let,
I was trying to copy and paste.
oh, you sound like myself. All right.
Where's the chat?
Okay, I think this is where we stop recording now, right, Sasha? Let's stop recording.
Yeah, okay. You pressed it?